Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Trevelli Effect. And on today's episode, I am actually going to be talking about the 21 things that I learned when I turned 21. So, this is being filmed on May 11th, and I turned 21 last week on May 4th. None of these Star Wars jokes, please. I finally got around to watching Star Wars. I'm actually a little bit of a fan now, but I've heard that one too many times. But I'm 21, and it's just so crazy that it's been a week since I turned 21, and I finally have confronted this reality that I hold the legal weight of being an adult in the US at least. And it's kind of crazy. It's very crazy that I can just like on my flight back home, I was like, oh, I could totally order a drink, or like I could go to the bar, or I could buy liquor, and I was it's just so crazy. I just like I can't wrap my head around the idea that that's like something I can do now. And I think when we grow up, it's something that it's some sort of access that we don't have. And so it's like, oh my God, it's a milestone. And now that I have it and I've had it for a week, I don't even know how to feel. And it's kind of made me confront, you know, this legal weight that is associated with adulthood in a very strange and peculiar way. But I think it's very interesting. And, you know, more in line with the theme of this video and what the topic is essentially just like the importance of reflecting on the years. It's something that I've recently been picking up. I'm like, okay, how was my 20th year? Like when I turned 20 is where I'm at right now, like where I expected to be. And I did the same thing at 19 where I was like, okay, like let's see where I'm going to be at 20. And at 20, when I turned 20 last year, I wrote down in a Substack blog, it was called Good Luck on Them 20 Somethings, 20 Things That I Learned at 20. And I think because 19 was such a pivotal and transformative period, like year that I've ever had, both emotionally, physically, mentally, like there's so much that happened. And as we progress in the podcast, you'll eventually uncover some of those experiences and how they really shaped and refined my perspectives now. But there was no way that I was going to enter my 20s without reflecting on 19. And when I turned 20, like I wrote it down, I reflected, I pondered, and I did the same thing at 21. Now it's been a week and I wrote down all of my lessons a while ago, but this was kind of intentional because I'm not in my dorm. I'm actually back home in Colorado, so I'm no longer New York City, not at Columbia, just because I think there's a little bit of a very peculiar way in which being in the place where you grew up, or where, for me at least, like I spent my teens here because we moved here like 7 years ago. But being in the place where I would always think about my dreams, think about where I would be in my 20s, like it really forces you to kind of confront the reality that, like, are you where you really want to be? What have you accomplished? What has worked? What hasn't worked? And it just like augments the reflection a lot more. So it's given me some time to think about, what is it that I've learned? How is this compared to last year? Like, it's not as transformative, but it doesn't make it any less important. I think 19 was, that's a year we're going to have to unpack over like a series of episodes. But, you know, going into 21, I learned 21 things and we're going to dive right into it. So let's get started. All right. So this is also a Substack post if you want to read it instead of listen to my little rantings about all of the lessons. And the lessons that I'm going to have may be broad and may be very like applicable to literally anybody. And I encourage you to, as you listen to these lessons, take what resonates, take inspiration from these lessons, use them, apply them in your own life. But then there's also some lessons that I think are more specific to my experiences in my life that might be a little bit more difficult to adopt, but every single lesson I hope here has some general, like broad principle that you can apply to your own life. And I don't know, just think about and reflect on how, if at all, that has become relevant, because these for sure have become relevant in my life. So, my first one is leave your comfort zone. And that one is broad. It is a very broad and very basic lesson, I think, because everybody tells us, like, leave your comfort zone, like, push yourself to do something more. And I think that's true. I think comfort zones can be very deceiving because you feel very good. You feel secure. You like where you are at. Like it takes very little mental energy, very little cognitive energy to make either decisions or to really think about like what is going on, and you're at a good place, whether it's physically, mentally, like or the relationships that you're in, because it comes at such ease, you want to stay. But I think there's something so in like, and of course it's easier said than done, but when you leave your comfort zone and you really push yourself to feel and assume those feelings of possible anxieties, doubt, or even fear about what could happen if you leave that comfort zone, you push yourself to really think about things in a different way based off of what the outcome of leaving those comfort zones are. And, they're typically positive. I think there's always a way to twist it to be positive. Like, even if something ends negatively, at least you can be like, oh, well, at least I know that that didn't work. Let me find something else that does. Or if it does end positively, it's like a new opportunity for you to explore something that works better for your life, something that has completely propelled new growth and a new you. It uncovers different parts of you that you probably didn't even know existed. So that's one thing that I learned. Leaving my comfort zone is what, has brought me to film this, to go to the university that I go to, Columbia, to move to New York City, to, pursue content creation when I was in high school. Honestly, to even like some of my relationships that I have, like my friendships, my relationships with my family. Like we're dynamic people. Things are ever evolving, and you can't stay in a static and very stagnant place in your life. You have to continuously move. So that is the first lesson that I learned. The second one is outgrowing friends and old relationships is okay. Your 20s are so critical, I think, for figuring out like who your close friends are, who is going to be in your little circle, who is going to be considered an op, who is going to be considered, just like an acquaintance. And I think that's okay. And I think it's okay to reflect on like, you know, as you're reflecting on who you are, what your goals are, your values, your aspirations, and all of those things, you're going to find that some people are not going to continue to align with those same values and goals. And that is okay. Like, there's just periods of growth where I realize, like, damn, like, this friend is not really serving me in such a positive way that they once did before. And, maybe it's just that I've outgrown them. Like, there's no beef. There has to, like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy or dramatic. Like, it's just like, you know what? We're growing up. We're heading our two separate ways. And I think this year for me has been so pivotal in one, just letting go of this idea that if we can no longer be friends just because our values align, it doesn't mean that we have beef. Like, it doesn't mean that now we're beefing and now they're an op. Like, I'm trying to let go of this idea that some people are ops and some people aren't. And I think that one's a little bit more difficult to do. I will not lie, but it's just, we outgrow people. We outgrow relationships. Sometimes it just doesn't work. You guys are both learning about each other, especially if you're both in your 20s and you're in college, whatever parties you're involved in. Sometimes, and it's okay. It's, I refer back to the train metaphor that I use in my 20 or good luck on the 20 somethings blog post, where it's just like your life is a train. People are going to get on and people are going to get off. They're going to get off at some point. Like, no one stays on a train forever. So, yeah, outgrowing friends and relationships is okay. All right. So, moving on to the third one. I think this is one of my favorite ones. Not called, it's be radical with everything you do. Radical with change, radical with opportunities, radical with love. And I think, it's 2024 and it's May. If you're not keeping up with the news, then please do. There's so much just going on in this world that you cannot ignore. But one of the things that has prevailed a lot, especially in the last couple of days of being 20, is protests, the unification of students against, very important matters. And it's just opened my eyes to the importance of being radical with the way that you approach, activism, change. I've always been somebody that's been in line with activism, always. And it's just once you radicalize your approach to everything, to life, to be daring, to be radical with the way that you want to pursue your goals, with content creation, with, your career, something like it's very parallel to leave your comfort zone. Like, this life is way too short to keep it safe and to not be, you know, put your best foot forward in everything. That's, I think, kind of what I mean with radical. But I think it's a difficult one. I think this one requires a lot of understanding that radical within the constraints of what is okay in terms of your risk assessments and all that stuff, naturally. But being radical with everything you do is so important. So important. All right, number four, your community, friends, and family are pillars to your support systems. Choose good ones. Back to this, like what was going on and watching my peers, fight for what they really believe in and like partaking in those fights and witnessing the horrible brutalization of, you know, their arrests and witnessing fellow peers literally get arrested for peacefully protesting. It was such a hard time. And I think if you're not a Columbia student, you're looking at it from an outside view, or you're really just like, feeding yourself a lot of media outlets that are not even capturing the full thing. It's so hard for me to describe the importance of your friends, your family, and your community. I don't think I would have gotten through that period had it not been for my close friends, my sweet mates, and their support. Like they were there for me, whether it was us going out to protest or whether it was like me fully, completely breaking down in front of my one friend and like smearing mascara all over his shirt. Having those friends that will be there for you and be a support and a pillar are so important. Similar with my family. My family was always reaching out, checking in, even if they were around like, I don't even know, like 1,700 miles away, providing a sense of solidarity and being with me and checking in on me. It's another pillar that upholds that things are going to be okay. And then, moreover, just the community, just like the students, like coming together, helping each other, providing support, giving each other food, a place to stay. Like my suite, my apartment during that time when we were witnessing all of that became just like a little hub for everybody to kind of just support each other. And it's just like you feel the energy of a community when there is so much support. And that's why it's so important to find. And like I've just realized that everything that I said does not even do any justice to speak how important it is and how grateful I am to have those support systems. But if you don't have those support systems and you don't put in the time, effort, or thoughtfulness to genuinely build those up and create support systems for yourself in times of chaos, in times of desperation and need, you are going to fall and there's going to be nobody there to catch you. And this is coming from one of the most independent people that I know, me. Like, I hate to use other people and like rely on other people for the sake of just like, providing me a little bit of comfort or support. But like during those times, it's so crucial and it's beneficial for yourself in the long run to have somebody there to just lean on. So having those systems is so, 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 so important. All right. So next one is going to be number 5. Don't go back to less just because you're too impatient to wait for better. This epitomizes my entire 19th, 20th year of life. I think it is an understatement to say that this is probably the biggest lesson that I've learned, is that I am impatient and that I can't be impatient. I think, going back into old habits, going back to old people, to old relationships, just because you're not patient enough to wait is a disservice. You're doing yourself a disservice, essentially. Like you are destroying everything that you've built. And this is definitely one of personal experience, one that I'm clearly very like passionate about. And I think it also kind of speaks to my spiritual and like religious beliefs that like, you know, God is, or whoever you believe in, the universe, God, whatever, is going to take away something from your life that no longer serves you. The lesson is that you can't keep going back just because you're too impatient to wait for what they are promising in the future for you. Something better. It's going to be something better. This idea that like everything that is removed from your life is because it's not meant to be there. Let things go. Things are going to come in, and if you don't create the room for them to come in, then they simply won't. And you're going to miss out on those opportunities, continue to destroy yourself, continue to destroy everything that you've worked so hard to construct, and it's just detrimental. 6, nature is healing. Dive into it. So, this is kind of just like a little lesson on just like the importance of just connecting with the natural world, going hiking, or like I always make these jokes that like after something traumatic happens in my life, I'm like, I have to go reconnect with nature. And it helps to see that there are things like your life compared to, like, let's say, like the Rocky Mountains when you're up and you have heights like 14,000 feet up in the air. All the problems just seem insignificant, and you also just witness the power of endurance and beauty that nature holds around you, and it's been along way longer than we can even begin to think about, or like longer than we can actually conceptualize. So nature is healing. I really do think it is. Channel your inner granola and go take a hike, go walk outside, go touch grass, please. Number 7, every choice that you make in your 20s adds up. So, no doubt, your 20s is so important for all the habits that you make to be good habits. Understand, like college, like I get it. I understand that being in college, you want to do your 3-day benders, you want to do your little like drinks every once in a while or every day, every weekend, however often. But I think, choosing to stay in because you're hungover instead of go to the gym, or not eat 3 meals a day because I don't know, you have to study. Every choice that you deliberately make will add up. It might not seem like a lot right now, but it adds up. And if they're negative and bad choices, they're going to be negative to your health, your mind, your career. Like sleeping in every day instead of, like, picking up a book and reading it, or studying for MCAT, LSAT, any exams, or like anything is just going to be detrimental. And I think one of the phrases that I think speaks to this lesson is excuses make today easy, but tomorrow harder. And if that just continues to add up, then the future is just going to be hard and it's going to be disappointing. 8 is indulge in new hobbies for your childhood self. I think this year I have tried so many new things. I took a karate class for my gym requirement at school. I started painting again. I started writing again. I started to do dance. I started so many things. And, these are all hobbies that I loved as a child and that I kind of just forgot about. And I think, one, trying new hobbies is so important. I think our phones consume up so much time that, like, a TikTok scroll, TikTok moment can easily be turned into just like, go paint, go draw, go write poetry, go do karate, go be active, go do something, literally anything, besides just like scrolling your life away. And especially if it's in tune with like your childhood self, my goodness, I can't even begin to explain how healing that is for your inner childhood self, or your inner child. That's what I meant. Or just for you, and you're trying new things, and it's great. Number 9, be open to love of all manifestations. This one's really simple. It's just, I think, after breakups, the friendships being destroyed, you kind of just like, I think maybe it's just me because I low key I have fallen into being an avoidant and kind of just like, "Ooh, like love, not really my thing." But I think it's so sad. That's like a very sad thing to see, that you're closing yourself off to like new opportunities that are so full of love, whether it's a romantic partner, whether it's a friendship, whether it's like family, like things like that. I think when you close yourself off to love of all manifestations, it's sad because it's like, damn, like you're not letting in these opportunities to let love flow into your life. And like, I think love is so powerful, and to be avoidant is to shut the doors before they even present themselves. So it's something that I'm still learning. I think that's a good thing to balance, and being like, am I ready to accept this love? And can I accept this love if I don't really love myself? Like, you need to be open to love in order to be able to love yourself, to love others, and to just expel love, just very generally. But be open to it. I think being avoidant can be very detrimental, even though you might think that you're protecting yourself. Number 10, your mind manifests your physical reality. This one's a little bit more on the cognitive side, where I think about kind of, the stimulus that goes into my head is being perceived by my mind, and my perception of the physical stimulus is my reality. So it's just super interesting when I put it in that way. It's just like my thoughts are the most powerful tools that I have. If I want to perceive everything as positive, my reality is going to become positive. So your perception of the outside world is 100% reliant on what your mind holds, so the thoughts, and how it processes it. And I undoubtedly think that there's a connection that bridges like your mind and the physical world, and have no doubt that your mind does manifest your physical reality. The way that you think, the way that you condition yourself to think, and what comes at ease and what doesn't 100% shapes your physical reality. 11. Don't take health for granted. I think this semester specifically, and I guess like the second half of my 20 years, I guess, I've just witnessed, I hate when witnessing family members, especially like immediate family, get sick. And I think those are the biggest reality checks of the importance of health because you never want to see your loved one sick, but health is so important. Whether it's doing exercise, eating healthy, just doing small things to make sure that your body is a vessel for your mind that helps you navigate this world, stays healthy and as good as you can keep it is so important. And I think that's something that, is very disheartening to witness, but is so important to remember. 12. Lesson 12 is be curious, read, and repeat. This is my favorite cycle of learning, and I'm just going to keep it at that. It's a short one, and it's good to expand your knowledge on literally anything that you want. Lesson 13 is to have faith in this day in age is invaluable. And I think I briefly mentioned my, spiritual, religious faith and kind of like new interests in helping shape how I view the world. And I think it's so important to have faith. Having faith in something that doesn't exist is so powerful. Like to believe in something that you can't necessarily sense or touch just to bridge yourself to the extensive large world that we have around us. And I think to help us make sense of things. And, it might seem stupid to some people, and I understand why. Like I am a very logical person. Like I can definitely see how, but I think to have faith, especially right now, like in this contemporary and society that we live in, is so important. It's so important to keep us hopeful, to keep us fulfilled. And it doesn't even have to be like religion, it doesn't have to be any of that, but just like believing in something. It's good. Lesson 14. Time only moves faster from here. That's it. That's just that time moves really fucking fast and there's nothing that you can do to stop it from now. The more aware you become of that, I feel like the more time passes and you're like, shit. Like I'm literally going to be a senior at college next time I return to Columbia, which is insane. Insane. 15. Your path forward requires a trip back to the beginning. So I have gotten a lot of coffee chat requests trying to talk about like how do I introspect? How do I really think about like what I want? Because apparently I exude this confidence of like what I want to do with my life and why I want to do it and completely solidify my reasoning. So people like to come to me, ask advice, and I'm like, honestly, go back to the fucking beginning. Like I think we all get so lost in the journey that we even forget why we started the journey in the first place. Like for me, I was like, okay, I'm in college. Like I love this. I love learning this. Like, what if I do this? Like maybe business? No, maybe psych. Like, why did I go to college in the first place? It was to build up the knowledge that I need in order to pursue something else. And remembering what your childhood activities or favorite things to do or pursuits, dreams, what those were, why you started these journeys. What is it that really brought your attention to these things? And just thinking about that, like, what is it that shaped your understanding for all of this stuff? And I think when you begin to look at the beginning, then you will begin to understand, like, okay, it kind of grounds you back into why you're doing this in the first place. So, yeah, I think that's one of my favorite lessons as well. Lesson 16, just cry. Just cry. Just let it out. Tears or not, like anger, whatever, just let it out. Just do it. Like, I think it's just a good form of release. And sometimes it just has to be done. 17. Better alone than in bad company. Or in Spanish, mejor sola que mal acompañada. No amount of bad company is worth having around for the sake of being surrounded by people. Be alone. Learn to be alone. Learn to love to be alone. It's better to be alone than be surrounded by bad people. It's better to be alone than to be stuck in a toxic relationship with a man. Literally just stay away from the bad company, the bad energy, because it is not worth doing that. I understand the fear of being alone, but like the second you find any sort of love or, desire to want to be alone, you become so much more powerful. than you anticipate. Number 18. I think this is one of my favorite ones as well. I have a lot. But it is everyone's first time living. Be patient. I think this is a lesson that I have learned a little bit too late. And I think a lesson that we all kind of know, but never really put into words or possibly acknowledge or confront. But it's everybody's first time living. Everybody's. So, like your friends, this is their first time being friends or learning to be friends as they enter adulthood in their 20s. That crappy first boyfriend that you had, that was his first time probably like learning to be a boyfriend. Or like it's my first time being a girlfriend. Like no one's we expect this level of perfection, these standards to be really high. Like I understand. Keep your standards high. But also be patient and have a little bit of leeway that like people are learning to navigate life for the first time. Your parents, that is their first time parenting, like ever. And that is not an excuse for shitty behavior. And this is across all fronts, but it is their first time trying to navigate everything, given the circumstances, given the resources. And I think if we all just thought about being a little bit more patient, balancing understanding, and also drawing the line at like, okay, repeated and toxic behaviors of this one friend, like, okay, like at this point, I can't give you that much leeway. But balancing those things is so important to the way that we navigate life, our friendships, relationships, everything. Lesson 19, detachment and assumption for a happy life. So, to detach from all that is temporary with the assumption that you are going to attract what is good and what is meant to be is the best recipe to navigate a life of abundance, success, and happiness. And it's essentially just that, like, back again to this train metaphor, things are going to come in, things are going to leave. And I think if you hold a certain level of detachment, that allows you to be okay with the fact that some people are not going to be here forever, these opportunities are not going to be here forever, and that, like, okay, it can be stripped away from you at any time. Enjoy it and assume that it's only going to get better because it will. Things that are taken away from your life are going to be replaced with something that is meant to be in your life. So I think that one's a good one. Lesson 20. I actually intended for this lesson to be 21, but my 21st lesson I think is something a little bit more important. But my 20th lesson is that alcohol is destructive. Alcohol is destructive to relationships, your body, and your interactions with the world and your emotions. If you do not drink responsibly, maturely, and if you abuse alcohol, use it as a coping mechanism, and basically just subject yourself to the power that alcohol has to release the worst version of yourself, you are going to destroy every single thing that you have. Your body, like physically, your liver cannot handle all of that. My God, like I sometimes I see how much people drink in college and I'm like, what the fuck? You rest in peace, your liver. Rest in peace, your liver. And I think this one's a little bit more specific to me because I think one of the first relationships that I had in college, my first and only like romantic relationship that I had in college, like alcohol was like a third party. It was like an entity. Like if you're having fun with somebody just because you guys are both drunk, I don't know if that builds like a solid foundation for a relationship when you guys are sober. Or just the fact that it like, it can lead to people completely betraying your trust and like engaging in these like tendencies that they otherwise wouldn't do if they were sober versus drunk. Or they just have bad energy, like very dark energy. They get sad, they get mad, they get angry, they get violent. Like that's insane that like that these things can happen and you still choose to subject yourself to drinking more than you should be. Now, I just turned 21. Of course, I had to have my little 21st celebration where, I drank responsibly. And I have friends that also drink responsibly. And like I was surrounded with people who drink responsibly and it's not like anything got out of hand, like nothing got crazy. Because I would never subject my body, my mind to that. And when you feed your soul, your mind, your body like bad things are bound to happen. So treat your liver kindly. Very, very simple. And now my 21st lesson. The people united will never be defeated. So this isn't necessarily a lesson that I learned at 21, I will say that. But this is something that has prevailed significantly in the last couple of days, months, maybe even like a while. But I've always known this, and I've always known that the unjust displacement of people, ethnic cleansing, genocide, etc., is always unequivocally wrong. Always. And I think witnessing my peers, myself, partake in being united with each other and to stand against, you know, this genocide that is basically occurring with the Palestinian people in Gaza, it has taught me that when people really unite and stand firm in these beliefs that, like fucking genocide and ethnic cleansing and fucking wrongful displacement of people is wrong, you know, I think the energy that like a united community, a united group of people can do, unparalleled, unmatched to any entity, and can be such an inciting force for change. I've witnessed a lot of that, and I think la gente unida nunca será vencida. Like solidarity is so important, and supporting however one can within the constraints of what you think is right in terms of like risk and like things that you want to assume and like what you're jeopardizing and your comfort. But I don't know, it's just that's something that I couldn't not include this in the things that I learned at 21 because this was happening as I was turning 21 and is still happening unjustly. So that is all 21 lessons. Yeah, these are the 21 things that I learned at 21. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was filming this, or as I'm filming this, I have definitely boosted up a little bit of my mindset and thinking about, how I'm actually going to take these lessons and apply them. Because we can all reflect, we can all take the time to really think and ponder about what works, what doesn't, create these really like inspiring, motivational lessons. But if you don't put them into practice, if you listen to this podcast and like, you're like, oh, I really like that lesson. I like that lesson. I'm going to use it. And you never actually apply it, or you're never actually mindful and intentional with how you apply that, then that reflection just goes to waste. Then you're just thinking with no action. And I'm calling myself out here because I think at 20, there's some things that I put down, lessons that I thought I learned that I very evidently didn't, mistakes that I have repeated despite the fact that I wrote about them and that I have sworn like had changed my life and the direction of my life. But this time, that's not going to happen. Absolutely not. So if there's anything that you're going to take away from this, if not any of the 21 lessons, then as you reflect and ponder, think about how you're actually going to put these things into practice and think about how much better your life will be once you take these lessons, apply them. Not necessarily my lessons, like your personal lessons, like whatever lessons you want. But yeah. So I think that's going to wrap up the end of this podcast episode. Thank you so much for listening to my little 21 things that I learned at 21. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.